Welcome to the MS-Perspektive podcast, Perspective with a K as I'm German. I'm Nele von Horsten, MS patient, patient advocate and author. I'm bringing you interviews, inspiration and information about living with multiple sclerosis and show you ways how you can positively influence the disease and make the best out of your diagnosis. On ms-perspektive.com you will find the show notes, 11 free tips as a PDF and lots of other information. And now the show begins. Thanks for tuning in again and welcome to episode number 126, From MS Diagnosis to GregoryAi, Bruno's journey through aHSCT and innovation. And now enjoy the interview. Hello Bruno, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Hello.
Hello, Nell. It's a pleasure to be here as well.
And before we actually start with the interview, it would be lovely if you could introduce yourself to the audience so they know who is with me on the podcast today.
Well, I'm nothing special. I live in Portugal. I'm 42 and I was diagnosed with MS about 5 years ago. I work as a digital communication professor and consultant. And what else? Well, I've always tinkered with technology and I always enjoyed writing. That's why I've been keeping a blog since 2005, 2006. I'm not even sure right now. And I've always tried to blend technology and creativity.
Fantastic. Lovely. My mom would love to chat with you. Unfortunately, her English is not so good, but she is doing the same, combining different fields. Yes. Okay. So you already said you were diagnosed. When were you diagnosed with MS and what led to that diagnosis?
Well, it began in 2019 when I was on a hike under extreme heat. And at some point, I noticed that my left leg was failing a bit, and I started to look into what could be going on. I went through 2 different doctors. They had MRIs on my leg, which weren't helpful, and then finally an osteopath. I figured out that it was something neurological at the point where the symptom was very intensified. And after that, I went to a neurologist who said that I should get an MRI and just to rule out anything else that could be causing the symptom. And that's when I found out it was MS.
Okay. So it sounds like a few weeks, right?
Few months.
Few months.
Because since the symptom was going, it went away every now and then. I didn't really notice it and I wasn't really scared and feeling any urgency. So it eventually got very worse. And fortunately, this osteopath figured out that I should be going to a different specialist.
Okay, that's good. Looking back, did you had any other symptoms that you now recognize as related to MS?
Not particularly, no. I did start to think back that maybe I should have paid attention sooner, but I can't find anything that could have led to the diagnosis.
Okay. And 42, 2019 is 6 years, so you are right in that 20 to 40 typical age group where MS is diagnosed mostly. How did you take the news of the diagnosis and how did your loved ones react?
Well, as soon as I found out what I had, it was easier to deal with it because I figured, okay, so now that I know what this is, I can actually do something about it. I can solve it. I can find a solution. Because when you don't know, there's a monster hidden in the closet and you're just afraid to open the door. But once you find out that the monster is actually something real, you can tackle it. But gradually, with the way it progressed over the few months, I started to worry and I started to ruffle around for answers. And I started looking into PubMed and a few other sites and stuff like that. And then in terms of my family and friends, they were very supportive, of course. You see, I have this very tight group of friends that call themselves the Lobsters, and they've been with me every step of the way. Since when I found out what I had to when I was committed to the hospital for a while to get the methylprednisolone treatment and all that, they've been with me every step of the way. And there was always a feeling that they were like, he's got this, he's going to figure it out. And they were just going along for the ride because they wanted to be a part of the story. So I wasn't afraid. And looking back, maybe that was a problem, because if I was afraid, I might have started to act sooner.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Good on the one hand, bad on the other hand.
Yeah,
Like
it's
like
always a
that.
trade-off.
It is, yeah. Do you use symptomatic therapies?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I'm taking Sativex and Fempridin, and that's pretty much it. I don't notice any benefit from it, but I do notice that if I stop taking them, that I will feel worse.
Uh-huh.
That's why I haven't stopped.
Okay. How did your lifestyle change after the diagnosis, if you did some lifestyle changes?
Oh, it changed drastically. I was that annoying friend that would always say that we can just walk over there. It's right next, and it was like a half an hour trip or something like that, just by walking. Um, so my daily routine, which was to ride my bike to work down the hill and up the hill, I had to change, of course, because at some point I couldn't. Um, Sometimes I would even stop at the gym, and I also stopped doing that because physical therapy made more sense, even at the time when I was more mobile than I am today. Uh, and it also changed the way that I work, because right now, obviously, I work from home and I only go to the school when I have classes. So that was also a big change.
Okay. And did you change anything like, I don't know, eating different stuff, stopping smoking, not drinking much, alcohols, things like that?
Well, I wasn't a heavy drinker, but I now drink less.
Very good.
Uh, in terms of diet, my diet was fantastic back then. The doctor said so, but it's not anymore, because now, since I can't stand to cook, I tend to favor dishes that are easier to prepare. So back then, when I wasn't a health freak or anything like that, but I like to keep healthy, so I would eat clean, and I would make sure that I'd get enough vegetables in my diet. But
Fantastic.
now I have to find ways to keep a balanced diet that don't require me to cook like I used to.
Mm. Okay, makes sense, yes. Have your personal or your career goals shifted since the diagnosis?
Oh, yeah, there's a whole story behind that. When I was diagnosed, my employer at the time suddenly switched me to another project. And for the first time, I started getting negative reviews on performance. And I figured this has nothing to do with my skill or with the way that the project is going. Uh, but it wasn't worth it to go after justice, you know? Looking for a just treatment would just drain me out against a big corporation, and I didn't want that. So I resigned, um, and I ended up applying to a teaching position at a university here, and that's where I've been working most of the time lately. I also restarted my consultancy business. I'm an independent contractor, and I have a few clients to whom I provide digital consultancy services and web development and a few other things. And also, um, you mentioned personal goals, right? For personal goals, right now, the only personal goal that I have is regaining mobility.
Hmm. Okay. What was your lowest point with MS? And very importantly, how did you manage to move forward?
It was asking for a wheelchair. That's the turning point where you see that things aren't going well, and that if you don't do anything, then your destination is very definitive. I'm still not over it. Um, I'm not over a lot of things, because I have been spending so much time indoors that I noticed that it's affecting me.
Hmm.
Because back when I could move at least a little bit better, even if I was alone, I would go out and I would at least be surrounded by strangers, and that was already good enough to get a fresher perspective on things. So right now, it's harder. Um, and whenever that weight is it gets a bit heavier, like it does sometimes, my way of coping is to do something on one of my projects, specifically Gregory, because that way I feel that it might not be a direct route to my goal, but it gets me a little bit further.
And just a question, on episode number 120, I was talking to Luigi Azzarone from Italy regarding the topic of the housing crisis for young people with disabilities, that there are too many apartments which are not easy accessible, and we need them everywhere in rural areas, but of course as well in downtown of bigger cities.
My apartment is not very accessible, no. I have to go up 2 flights of stairs to get into my apartment.
Okay,
Uh,
because otherwise I guess you could go out with a wheelchair as well and still get the other perspectives easily, and it wouldn't be hard. So in a way, you are kept in
in an
your
old
apartment.
building that has a staircase that is too small for an elevator. So it is hard. The upside is that I'm in the center of Lisbon.
Okay, that's
And
good.
at some point I started making friends across the cafes in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's hard to get out and into the apartment, but it's worth it. Especially when I get to be around people that aren't just kind, but they're always in good spirits.
That's good. That's lovely. Yes. And of course, I will link that podcast episode because I think it's important that we all speak up to have more accessible apartments and also in downtown cities, not just somewhere in the rural areas, but of course everywhere. But I think people should notice that one. Um, when you were first diagnosed, were you offered disease-modifying therapies, and how did you decide which one to start with?
Well, yes, I was presented with natalizumab at first for a year, given that I was already positive for the JVC virus. So the idea was I would start with natalizumab and then I would switch to Ocrevus, and that's exactly what we did. It wasn't really a decision because my doctor presented the two options, explaining that natalizumab was already one of the most effective ones that we could do,
Hmm.
and that Ocrevus was the new drug that was being that was showing good results. So I figured I'm just going to trust.
Hmm.
And at this point, I don't regret trusting at all.
Yeah. Did you try other therapies over time? And if so, what were reasons for switching? How did they work for you? Probably not. You already mentioned it.
Yeah, my status doesn't really allow me to test too many therapies. For example, my doctor says the first thing that she said was, uh, if you want to participate in trials, do not participate in anything that has a placebo.
Hmm.
So I can't really afford to test therapies that aren't either proven or that interfere with my current medication, which at
Hmm.
the moment is none, but that's another story.
Okay. Eventually, you chose to undergo autologous hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, aHSCT. What led to that decision?
So the transplant became my only option at some point because my mobility was getting worse, and the only other option that was presented to me was doubling the dose of Ocrevus, which I figured wouldn't make much sense because if it didn't pass the blood-brain barrier before, it wouldn't pass with an extra dose. So I ended up approaching my doctors with the idea because I had discovered some cases of the transplant being successful with other patients.
Hmm. Okay. Where did you have the treatment, and what was the process like from preparation and the procedure itself to your recovery afterwards?
Oh yeah, that was a whole novella. So my hospital didn't have any experience with the transplant.
Hmm.
So I ended up sending out an email to everyone who had done any research on the transplant,
Hmm.
asking if they knew a way for me to obtain the procedure in some way.
Hmm.
This was a massive email that I sent out mostly out of desperation, to be sincere. And one doctor actually forwards my email to another doctor in Portugal,
Hmm.
in Coimbra, was about to retire, but she said that, let me have a word with your doctor, and uh, I'm going to retire in a few months, but I will either help you get another treatment, which was alemtuzumab,
Hmm.
or I'll open the door for the transplant here in Coimbra.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what happened. At some point, alemtuzumab was taking too long to be approved. And I decided, let's just get a transplant because either way, I rather nuke it completely and see what comes out than to just go with alemtuzumab, which is just a peripheric immune reconstitution. And that's the story. If that one doctor hadn't replied to my email and gave me a phone call, I wouldn't have found the treatment.
Okay. And when was that? Which year?
It was about 2 years ago.
Okay, 2023.
Yeah.
Okay. And since the aHSCT, how has your MS changed? Do you feel progression has stopped or slowed down?
I don't know, but I don't feel that it has stopped. I did get better at some point, and there was one day where I managed to walk without a cane.
Mhm.
I was a bit out of balance, but it was amazing. But after that, especially when it's hot, especially when I'm a bit more tired, I've been noticing myself getting worse. And I always keep my Apple Watch on me so that I can figure out if I've been more mobile or not.
Mhm.
And it shows that no, things are not getting better. And I did know that that was a risk. So I'm not complaining, I'm not whining about it. I just had to give it a try. And now I need to find something else because it didn't work.
And just for the audience who is not maybe that deeply into the topic, the aHSCT is helping with the immune system that is coming from the body, from the periphery, but it doesn't help with everything that is already going on beyond the blood-brain barrier, so in the central nervous system. So I guess that's the reason why there's too much going on in your case, Bruno, right? And you need medication that is going over the brain-blood barrier to help you with. But just for the people out there, because not everybody, I guess, is aware of that
Mhm.
fact. So it probably stopped everything going into the brain-blood
Yeah.
barrier, but not what is already there and is still damaging, unfortunately. So
Yes.
that is one important thing. Okay, so let's talk about Gregory for MS. What is Gregory AI? What inspired you to create it, and how can it support people with MS?
Well, Gregory is hope. Gregory is a bot that was born in an old small computer that I had lying around, uh, and it takes inspiration from other characters in pop culture, like Baymax from Big Hero 6, who was a robot nurse, and Johnny Five from the movie Short Circuit, who is a robot that becomes self-aware and he wants to learn everything about the humans, and he really wants to be friends with everyone. That's the spirit of Gregory. And the name comes from the word aggregate, because that's what he was doing initially. It was just aggregating different sources of research and different results into a single database. And it also comes from Gregory House, because it was his first name. And I figured if we want to find out what's going on with MS, we need the best detective around. And that would be either Sherlock Holmes or Gregory House.
Gregory House is Doctor House, right? Is that
Yes, Dr.
yeah, yeah.
House.
I didn't know his first name. I was watching it a couple of times and loved that character, that very awkward character. But yeah, he was smart guy, very smart guy. Um, how
And it's
access
fantastic,
it,
because if people don't know the first name, it's a perfect name for Gregory.
yeah. How accessible is Gregory for someone who has no background in AI like you and me or digital tools?
I've always made it a point for it to be as accessible as possible. So, in its simplest form, Gregory is just going to send out an email to let people know of new clinical trials or new research that might be relevant. The relevant research is determined by machine learning algorithms that were developed, well, not just by me, but also by my friend Antonio Lopes, who is an AI researcher. And we also had the help of the School of Business and Economics, Nova, here in Portugal. They have a or data science masters, and they used Gregory as an example. So you don't need any background on AI. You don't need any technical information. You just need to receive the emails, and if you find something that might be interesting to you, you present it to your doctor. But Gregory was not built for the patients. We are helping patients as a byproduct because the whole point is, especially here in Portugal, doctors complain of lack of resources and time. And I figured, well, I'm pretty good at automating stuff, so I can help you save time. I can build the biggest resource of MS that gets updated daily. And that's what Gregory is.
Fantastic. Yes, great. And still, if patients, I mean, doctors, I guess, should be able to do it, but for patients, you can then take the outcome from Gregory AI and use one of the AIs like ChatGPT or something else and say, please translate it into easy to understand language. Because if you get the papers from PubMed, it's maybe a bit high class in
It is.
education, but you can just get it translated and prompted. So I'm an MS patient. I want to understand how much it can help me. Please translate it into in understandable, easy
Plain
to
English.
digest, plain English or plain Spanish, Italian, uh, whatever. I don't know, Vietnamese,
Yes.
Chinese language. With the AIs out there, it can be all done.
I have
Fantastic.
been thinking about integrating those LLMs with Gregory. The reason that's keeping me from doing it is we don't have the resources for it. Because right now, the project is financed only by the donations that we receive. And integrating directly with ChatGPT would mean subscribing to a new service and adding costs to the project. So that's the reason why we still haven't moved forward in that area.
And that's totally fine. I think everybody can do it on their own.
Yeah.
Just wanted to give an explanation of how people could use it, and that I think is not. It's a bit too much to request from you, who is doing all of it on personal purpose. What feedback have you received so far from MS patients who have tried Gregory, or from people using it for other things like experts or so?
Well, there was one time a person from the United States, uh, she mentioned that she was using Gregory because her partner had MS in the progressive form.
Mhm.
And her words were simply, receiving these emails is one of the few things that gives me hope. And that really made me choke up because it was the first time that, okay, I'm reaching out to someone who is facing a bigger hardship than I am, and someone who doesn't even have MS, but their loved one has MS. So, yeah, that was the best feedback that I got so far, and it's one of the few things that sometimes keeps me going. But lately on Blue Sky, I've been noticing patients engaging more, making more suggestions, putting likes on the articles that they find that are interesting, which also signals to me what's resonating with them and helps me also figure out if the article is actually relevant or not, because I keep tweaking the database to make sure that we annotate every relevant article and every article which is not relevant so that the system can improve itself. So those patients have been fantastic.
Great. Yes. And behind all these patients who come back to you, there are many who are just too shy or not thinking about that feedback. Sometimes is very helpful as well for
Yeah,
keeping
that's
up.
true.
So I know there will be way more, not just the few that are reaching out to you. So Gregory also helps users find recent papers and clinical trials more easily. And finding the right clinical trial is not easy. That's for sure. Can you explain how this works and why it's such an important feature?
Exactly. The reason why you just mentioned, the biggest barrier to participating in trials is the access to information. And most of the times, the suggestions to participate come from the doctor. And the doctors don't really have the time to go through 3 different registries to find clinical trials for their patients and then matching the patients to the clinical trial. That is a whole ordeal. So the way that Gregory helps is it can tap into 3 different registries.
Mhm.
The main ones are Europe, uh, the World Health Organization, and clinicaltrials.gov. and it can save time for doctors and patients to find clinical trials that match them. This way, it empowers the patients to get the trials and to reach out to the doctor and say, there's this one, am I eligible or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. AI is sitting in the room together with the doctor and the patient nowadays. At least it's possible, and people should use that because it empowers both sides, I would say.
Yes,
Gr-
it turns the doctor more into a mentor
Mhm.
than a prescriber. And I think that's a shift that needs to happen very fast.
Yes, yes, yes. And we all need to work on this to make it really happen fast and not in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Fast.
Yes,
Get up to speed.
for
Um,
yesterday.
yeah, yesterday would be lovely, okay, but as fast as possible. And people need to start using it to make, of course, probably some mistakes, but that's not a big problem. If you start using it, you are getting better and getting better, and the systems are getting better. So I
Mhm.
think there are lots of possibilities. And if you are talking openly and honestly about things we know for sure and things we don't know for sure, then it's not such a problem because then somebody else can check it and we can find out about maybe mistakes or things we can do better.
Yes, which is exactly what the doctors and researchers advocate when they mention open access and preprint papers. Uh, so they cannot advocate for open access and open science without also advocating for the patient's right to have an equal conversation with the doctor and to have access to tools like any AI system that might simplify the language, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruno, what are your hopes for the future of Gregory AI? Would you like to collaborate? Who would you like to collaborate with? And what kind of support or expertise would help you take the next step in improving the tool for the MS community and beyond?
Well, for Gregory, my main hope is that it can help research develop faster, uh, especially if especially if we can extend it to other areas. For example, right now Gregory is just focused on MS, but I would like to expand it for the whole field of brain regeneration. And with that in mind, I'm trying to set up partnerships with either researchers that are working on that field or other institutions that might find it useful. For example, there's a project in Coimbra, here in Portugal,
Mhm.
called Regenerar, who has funding to research brain regeneration techniques. Of course, they're not directly linked to MS, but since we're all going towards the same goal, I reached out and I gave them access to a customized little part of Gregory.
Mhm. Very good. Do you have a personal dream or wish you're still holding on to?
Well, the only realistic dream I keep is to see Gregory move MS faster and to help people like me walk again, because that's the whole point of me starting Gregory. I wanted to I wanted to get better. I wanted to go back uh, to 2018 when I could just hike for another few miles and not get tired. So if I could ask for a wish, yeah, I want to see Gregory become a key point in helping everyone with MS and other brain disorders, because that's the whole point of the project being open source. We can tailor a system like Gregory to any field of research. And if we all know what's being researched, we can all move faster. And if we move faster, we can help more people.
Yeah, absolutely. What development would you most like to see in the MS field in the next 5 years?
It's not a development per se. I think we have a problem of strategy because we don't have a clear map of what is being researched around MS. But Gregory can provide that map because it's always feeding itself with the latest research. I don't know which factors the map needs to have. Maybe it's anti-inflammatories, maybe it's myelin repair. I don't have enough knowledge to be able to tell you that part. But if we have that map, we can start to think, okay, so where do we need to put resources to make sure that we've covered all the bases? Because right now, the field of MS is only focused on anti-inflammatories, it seems. There's now some interest with the BTK inhibitors. I get it. But where's the myelin repair, and why aren't we digging deeper to find therapies that repair the myelin faster, for example?
Yeah.
And Gregory on its own can't do that, but an organization like the World Health Organization or ECTRIMS could step in and say, this is the map that we need, and this is where we should be. And Gregory can help not just plot the map, but keeping it updated in real time.
I think, just coming back to your comment, I think a problem is that it's the therapy against relapsing and remitting were the low-hanging fruits. It was kind of easy, of course not easy, but kind of easy. Myelin repair is really on top of the tree, not so easy, and lots of people are looking into it, and I had some of them here on the podcast. But of course, still, we need to walk more in that direction. But I had the feeling that last extremes was only joining virtually, that people are more looking into that direction because the low-hanging fruits are all now taken, more or less. And we can move up the tree and go for the harder stuff, like stopping progression and myelin repair. People were doing things, but I think now more money is and resources are getting into these parts of MS treatment. But yeah, MSIF and EMSP, so the European MS organization and the International MS organization, would be interesting partners to speak with. How much they are having a map or not, I'm not sure. No, they have things on their radar, and the MS Association of America, I don't know the correct name, but they have something like Progressive Alliance, where they are looking into that topic. But we need to do more in that direction. That's absolutely for sure. Okay, so coming to the quickfire Q&A session, what's the best advice you've ever received?
That will probably do what you can with what you have.
Uh-huh.
It's not about accomplishing the goal. It's at least doing a little bit to move the needle forward, so that you might not fix it for yourself, but you're making it easier to fix by someone who comes after you.
Yeah.
I think we've been losing a bit of that.
Yeah, That's I try to live to that saying, because if I do things right, then hopefully things are, or if I behave nice, then hopefully people are behaving nice to my relatives or whatsoever, even so I don't get it back directly. Having that podcast will help hopefully lots of people, and then other people will do things that are helping me. But yeah, I agree. We are going more, at least it's a bit the direction that people are looking more just on their own and not for the whole society. And we should work together with everybody as a whole society, because that makes life way more friendly, lovely, and enjoyable.
And open. The idea comes also from the open source community.
Mhm.
I think they are the ones giving us more hope, because every time that the developer just publishes their code for anyone to use, they're trying to build a better world. So
Mm.
there's hope.
For sure, for sure. And there are lots of lovely people out there like you. Complete the sentence. For me, multiple sclerosis is?
A nemesis. It's the villain that made me focus on the things that are important, and the villain that I still want to defeat. I don't know how, I don't know if I'll make it. I just know that I have to try.
Mhm. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice from the time of your diagnosis, what would it be?
Don't wait. Don't wait for good things to happen, because if you don't take the reins on your destiny, someone else will, and you might not like the destination.
Yeah. And I think with MS, it's a very important statement. We should uh, be quick, be fast, to take care of our brain health and our whole body health. What message would you like to leave for our listeners today?
To the listeners, I believe that there is hope on changing the path of MS research and develop new treatments that actually repair the brain. But I don't believe that the current organizations, the current actors, are doing everything that they can. Patient associations and even patients themselves, we can change that by questioning more, by learning more about what is going on, not just in MS, but in big pharma, and to find the problems that need fixing. And then start to connect with universities, research institutes, whatever it is, and start by asking, why isn't there more research? Since it affects us personally, because the difference between a doctor and a researcher and a patient is the first two, they can just change directions, they can change careers. The patient has to deal with this till the end of their life. So we have to take the reins.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. It's very important. We need to take it serious. We need to engage. We need to do something because we will be, as of now, we will be living until the end with MS. It's not going away, hopefully. Of course, would be lovely if you find a cure, but as of now, we have to live with it and we have to do something. And I just had for the German podcast, I just had a episode on why democracy is so important for us living with a health condition. And I think I will have another episode for the English podcast because it's really way better to live in a democracy when you are a chronic ill, I guess for everybody more or less, but with a chronic illness for sure. And how people can take part in democracy and do something for what is important for them. It's not just with the official parties; it's all different kind of levels. But we should not just sit there and complain. We should do something, and we should be happy that we have democracy and take part and keep. Changing it in a good way. So, of course, it's always changing with the system. It's always changing with AI will bring change to everything, I guess, also to democracies, how they are going. And yes, we should be active. Where can people find you online or follow your journey, Bruno?
I still keep my blog at brunoamaral.eu,
Mhm.
but lately I've been more active on Blue Sky, always with the same brunoamaral.eu handle. I think those are the best places. And for Gregory, they can find gregory-ms.com, where there's all the information, all the most up-to-date research.
Fantastic. And of course, I will put all of the links in the show notes and, of course, in the blog article for people who want to read through it again. You have given me some answers, so the short one. Bruno, thank you very much. We stay for sure in contact. Maybe I can help you a little bit with reaching out to people. That would be my little moving the pin, like you said. And yeah, thank you very much for all the effort you are putting in. And fingers crossed, you will be able to take part in a clinical trial that would be helpful. But until that's happening, it's great that you are doing so much for the community and for everybody who is affected by neurodegenerative diseases. Thank you.
Well, you don't have to thank me. We're all on this together. I'm just trying to do a little bit. Thank you now.
Bye-bye. I hope you get inspired and learn something new, and maybe even start trying to use GregoryAi for your disease or for the disease of somebody else to check out for clinical trials or to check out for new papers, and that it gives you hope like it does for Bruno. And yeah, with that, please stay as positive and active as possible and as healthy as possible. And see you next time. And of course, whenever you have comments, please comment on a social media post or on the blog article. Reach out to Bruno or let me know when you have other topics you want to be discussed on the podcast, and recommend the podcast to somebody else who might be interested in it. By that, see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You may also be interested in the previously published episodes and posts, which you can find at ms-perspektive.com/podcast. Perspective with a K. You can also get a free PDF with 11 tips for your positive impact on MS, at ms-perspektive.com/newsletter. If you'd like to get in touch, you can reach me at nele@ms-perspektive.com or on social media. Hear you next time.